All right. All right. Today is the uh, 80th anniversary of the beginning of the Battle of Okinawa. Okay, so I was supposed to release a video about the U.S. invasion of the Kurama Islands before the Battle of Okinawa, but I guess I don't have time for that. I really don't. So I don't have time for much time for this either. So I'm just gonna speed up the process than usual because this shouldn't take this long. I go into depth with these things. A quarter of this shouldn't even be here. It's just before the battle. But anyways, leading up to it. But that video is not out yet, but it will be out soon. But there is there is a community post about it if you want to go check it out first. Read that and then watch this video. All right. Because Kurama Islands is really important to the Battle of Okinawa right now. So, the Battle of Okinawa. It was codenamed by the U.S. Operation Iceberg. Well, it was the last major battle of World War II. World War II. I'm reading from the script, by the way. So, the landing day was called L-Day to distinguish it from D-Day, so to avoid any confusion of the 2 days. D-Day in Normandy, you know. Not only was it on April Fool's Day, which is also today as well, but it was also on Easter of 1945. Yeah. Wow. It all started when the American Naval Task Force 58 started to launch airstrikes on the Japanese home island of Kyushu, so like one of the main home islands up there in Japan. Started doing that on March 18th, 1945, to destroy their airfields, which they did successfully, to eliminate the air threat for the upcoming American invasion of Okinawa. Task Force 59 also started striking Okinawa, the actual island of Okinawa, on March 23rd, with its carrier aircraft coming from aircraft carriers, and would continue to bomb the island and destroy enemy aircraft and ships, until the end of the L-Day campaign. Okinawa campaign, Operation Iceberg. Get with it. On March 24th, 1945, U.S. minesweeper ships arrived off Okinawa and began to clear any mines that were there, though it was few. It was few mines. You know, Japan didn't really use that many sea mines. I'm talking about sea mines, by the way, for ships. They started doing that to make corridors for Allied ships to pass through. The next day, a handful of battleships temporarily until the main task force could arrive, or the main naval force could arrive, which it did so the next day, broke off from their own task force and arrived off the coast of Okinawa and started to shell it and its Japanese defenders. So a handful of battleships, they're in a big task force, and then a few battleships broke apart temporarily and started shelling Okinawa. The following day, on March 26, the British Task Force 57 began launching airstrikes on the Sakishima Islands next to Taiwan to get rid of any threat of kamikaze planes for future American forces soon to land on Okinawa. But that day also saw the first kamikaze attacks on American ships that were stationed off of Okinawa, in which those kamikaze planes damaged multiple vessels. So I'm not talking about first ever kamikaze attacks. I'm for first kamikaze attacks on ships stationed off of Okinawa, in which they were damaged. Quite a few. Throughout the days leading up to April 1st, kamikaze planes hit quite a few American vessels around Okinawa, like the USS Nevada, for instance, on March 27th. On April 1st, 1945, 1,321 major Allied ships of all sorts and landing boats and other small aircraft, making a total of 1,321 major Allied ships of all sorts, including landing boats and other small aircraft, making a total of 1,600, gathered off the central west coast of Okinawa, preparing for what they thought was the beginning of the end. H hour for the invasion. H hour meaning like the hour that it's going to happen for the invasion was set to be at 8:30 a.m. that day. At 6 a.m., though, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and more began, like gunboats, began to fire their cannons and rockets at the beachhead, along with artillery fire coming from the Kurama Islands. That's why you gotta read about the Community Post. From the Kurama Islands, and many carrier aircraft bombs from aircraft carriers. The planes from the aircraft launched and started dropping their bombs in Okinawa to join in with the other artillery and ships. This intense shelling and bombardment is titled the largest and heaviest bombardment for an amphibious landing in human history. Even bigger than the bombardment, the naval bombardment and aircraft bombardment in the hours leading up to D-Day. Wow. Yep, Okinawa. Anyways, the local Okinawans living on the island called it the Typhoon of Steel for the sheer amount of ordnance raining down on their home in such a short span of time. This Typhoon of Steel had the purpose to destroy as many enemy fortifications as humanly possible. During this time, that was a lot. You could do a lot with that. The 1800s, no more. But at 6:50 a.m., 50 minutes after the start of the Typhoon of Steel, the soldiers and Marines of the U.S. 10th Army, which were designated to land on the islands, climbed the cargo nets on the side of their ships, down into their LVTs and Higgins boats, waiting to be brought ashore. But they weren't necessarily excited for it either. You see, dispute. Oh, this is despite. It's supposed to say despite. You see, despite American intelligence falsely indicating there would be half the Japanese garrison on Okinawa than there actually was, then that number, the real number being 130,000 Japanese defenders, it was still expected that once the troops land, the hail of enemy fire onto American forces would be worse than it was on D-Day. Jesus. That's why the Typhoon of Steel happened. That's why we heavily bombarded that island, because we got to get those fortifications. Got to get that, because they were going to be on us straight away as soon as we landed. The Japanese were. Meaning American morale among the landing force was very low due to the inevitable slaughter of them en masse as soon as they land. 10 minutes later, at 7 a.m., the landing craft filled with American soldiers and Marines disembarked from their ships to the beach, or beaches. There are different beach sites, but I guess it's just one beach. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island and further south, another smaller American landing force was gathering to launch 7 small waves of amphibious assault soldiers as a decoy to deceive and distract the Japanese from the actual main landing before the actual main landing happened. So the Americans had a few decoy landings at Minatoga Beach, more south on the east side of the island. And the Japanese thought, oh, the Americans are going to land there. Nope. Anyways, back to what I was saying. It worked. Yeah, it worked. But some of the American ships were attacked by kamikaze planes. Attacked by kamikaze planes. Back at the main naval invasion group, the LVTs and Higgins boats, accompanied by DUKWs, basically just trucks, but boats. You should look up a picture. Like literally just a hybrid. So just water trucks. I put water boats there for some reason. I guess I wasn't thinking properly. The LTVs and Higgins boats carrying the troops were accompanied by the DUKWs, the water trucks, and Sherman tanks fitted with T6 float kits, which are just like things that can help them float and move in water on their own, made their way to the landing zone. They all made their way to the landing zone. Finally, at 8 a.m., 30 minutes ahead of schedule, the American landing force hit shore and the ramps of the transport... Okay, this is where it gets serious. And the ramps of the transport boats went down, so American soldiers and Marines came pouring out, ready to face the onslaught of Japanese bullets. But there were none. No enemy fire had been shot from when the ramps of the American boats went down on the sands of Okinawa, which led to confusion among the landing force. But good nonetheless, as intelligence prediction reports suggested that there would be up to a 60% casualty rate for each wave of American forces. That's a lot. Despite this confusing and somewhat suspicious situation, the landing craft headed back to the main fleet, the empty landing craft, headed back to the main fleet to pick up and drop off more troops. After an hour of the invasion, 16,000 soldiers and Marines had already landed on Okinawa, and by this time, the decoy landing on the east coast had withdrawn, on the east coast of the island, had withdrawn from its landing spot, because, they already did their mission. And, also by this time, the actual main force had secured... Sigma. Never mind. Forget I said that. So after an hour of the invasion, 16,000 American soldiers and Marines landed on the main beaches of Okinawa, and the decoy assault teams withdrew from their beach. So, anyways, during this time of the 1 hour, bigger troop transport boats for the Americans started to be used to carry soldiers, supplies, vehicles, and equipment to the island, as the threat of the enemy was not even there at all. It was never there. One of the missions of the 10th Army was the 10th Army designated to invade Okinawa of the 10th Army was to capture 2 Japanese airfields located on the island. Now, it was expected that it would take about 10 days to capture at least one of the airfields. But the Americans took them both within 4 hours and 30 minutes of the start of the battle. Because it was just so easy. There was barely any Japanese soldiers. Basically nobody there to defend nothing. No, and I'll get into that. So it was basically at 12:30 p.m. They captured both of them. But while they were trying to seize the airfields, they did come across some Japanese positions centered around light machine guns, and every so often encountered enemy sniper fire, while they were going through the airfields. Light fighting, it says right there. End of sentence. And encountering enemy sniper fire, end of sentence. Light fighting, end of sentence. The American soldiers also found the airfields along with the hangars, command buildings, bunkers, fortifications, and supplies all abandoned. They were all abandoned. No Japanese guarding, no Japanese there, just nobody. At 4 p.m., the heavy and large Allied naval bombardment of Okinawa ended, so the Typhoon of Steel at last came to a close. Also, the Typhoon of Steel bombarded a total of 30,000 explosive shells onto Okinawa after the whole thing was done. So, yeah. By the end of the day, more than 60,000 U.S. troops came ashore in Okinawa and established a 5-mile-long beachhead that was 8 miles wide. For the first day? Dude, that would have... If the Japanese actually tried, that would have been the first 10 days. This was actually a major victory and success. No casualties at all when they first landed. It only took going inland to do that. And it was very few, a very minimum. A few wounded, a couple dead. Very sad, but that was major. This was supposed to be way bloodier and way brutal. More brutal than D-Day. But it wasn't. It just wasn't. And there was nobody there. The Japanese weren't there to defend. They were somewhere else. But it was crazy. Like, all this buildup of tension for the bloodiest, for what could have been the bloodiest landing of all time, was actually, in fact, the bloodlessest, bloodless the most of any major landing force in the Pacific Theater and possibly World War II as a whole. So it was just major success. 10-day gains turned into 1-day gains. 10-day gains. Anyways, not those kind of gains. The other kind of gains. But anyways, back to the topic. 60,000 U.S. soldiers landed on the island, on the beach by nightfall, and with a 5-mile long and 8-mile wide beachhead that they have captured from the Japanese, from Okinawa, I guess, because Okinawa was not a home island, but rightfully Japanese soil before World War II, and it still is today. Throughout the days after April 1st, American forces encountered and engaged small pockets of Japanese soldiers and destroyed their caves with their Sherman tanks. The USA even cut the island in two from the enemy on April 4th, meaning they severed it. Like this is the island controlled by Japan. Oh no, what's this? Now we have this little strip, and now your forces are cut into two. Or what remains of them, I guess. So where are they? Though the Battle of Okinawa wasn't at all called the easiest skirmish in the Pacific Theater. In fact, the exact opposite, as the ignorant Americans, not ignorant, not in a bad way. People take the word ignorant as a bad way nowadays, but it just means you don't know. So, as the ignorant Americans were soon to find out that it wasn't going to be called the easiest skirmish in the Pacific Theater for long. There's a reason why it's called the most bloodiest and brutal of the Pacific Theater. Folks, this is no April Fool's joke. This happened. And this video also did happen as well. So, that's it. 80th anniversary of the start of the Battle of Okinawa, if you don't count the Kurama Islands as one. So go check out the community post if you haven't already, and you already watched this video. And a video about the community post will be out. I already have it filmed. I just need to post it. Actually post it once I get the epic video out. So I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Also, this video posted on April 2nd. Hopefully, not April 3rd or anything. Yeah, I know. I missed it, I guess. I can't really say I haven't missed a single World War II anniversary video. I can only say I haven't missed a single European theater World War II anniversary video. So, there's that. But since it's April 2nd, I will inform you about a little fact from April 2nd, 1945. L Day plus one. On April 2nd, 1945, the Tactical Air Force Command Post, the command center for the Tactical Air Force that like deals with Air Force operations, and all that, moved its command post, the U.S. Tactical Air Force Command Post. One of the generals of the operation of the invasion of Okinawa, the operation, decided to move the Tactical Air Force Command Post to the island of Okinawa, as he deemed it safe enough. Because, I mean, who could blame him? Where are the Japanese? Somewhere else, but like not where they landed. So it was really safe, and like it wouldn't be attacked or anything. So that general, whose name starts with an M, set up the command post between the two Okinawa airfields as like a makeshift command post, I guess you could say. Makeshift. What was the other word? Makeshift, and then crude. Yeah, makeshift crude command post for that as well, between the two Okinawan airfields that the Americans have captured the day before. So, and the first plane made it ashore onto Okinawa that same day. It was a marine observation plane, for reconnaissance and all that. So, from the Marines, because the Tactical Air Force was joint between the Marine and Army commands. So, that's a little fun fact. Fun, quick one, 3 minutes long. So yeah, that happened on April 2nd, 1945, the day after the start of the invasion of Okinawa, start of the Battle of Okinawa, and Operation Iceberg as a whole.